Bartenders of Reddit, what was the weirdest craziest thing you have overheard while making someone's drink? The first restaurant bar I worked in I was only serving, but I frequently was in the section right next to the bar. One day I was busy serving a large group, but the restaurant was mostly empty and a guy behind me at the bar said, "You wanna pet my parrot?" My initial reaction was the same as if a stranger had just come up behind me and touched my shoulders, but when I turned around, it really was a guy with a parrot on his shoulder. The parrot's name was Bobby, and yes, both me and the bartender pet him. Surprisingly heartwarming. Thanks for that. Regular of mine who I hadn't seen in a while was sitting at the bar when I came in for a shift change. I came in the back way and noticed he had crutches leaning against the bar. Recently in the news someone hadn't had their shotgun properly secured in their truck and it went off. So I jokingly say, "You're that freaking idiot who blew off his leg, aren't you?" The whole bar gets quiet and everyone is mean mugging me. My regular starts laughing. Yeah, it was him. I had no idea. I didn't apologize, because as his favorite butthole bartender those comments were expected of me. Poor guy was only 20 couple and blew his leg off close to the hip. No idea how he survived. I was a bartender for about 2 weeks, filling in for a relative who owned a bar and went on his honeymoon. I heard a guy talking to a woman about murdering her husband. I called the cops, but these patrons were gone before they showed up. This was before cameras, so I just gave my story and that was it. Not long after, my uncle calls me saying the cops are looking for me. They interview me about the couple. Apparently, the guy was a hitman for hire and the woman was trying to get some insurance money. She got busted. It was actually an episode of Forensic Files back when that was on TV. I remember watching the episode and they said something like the couple was overheard discussing the murder in a bar. I was kind of upset that they didn't mention me. LOL. I was hoping for, the awesome bartender overheard them, but couldn't really tell us much. He also pointed at the male in the photo lineup and asked, "Is this him?" as if he was unsure. What a freaking dope. We had to use forensic evidence because the eyewitness was useless. I was tending bar during an extremely busy happy hour. The place was mobbed and super noisy. Suddenly, a guy sitting at the bar stands up and announces, "Ladies and gentlemen of the bar, I represent the Acme Meat Company and we carry a full line of high quality." The entire bar goes silent while he continues to do his sales pitch at full volume. For some reason he decided that this was a great time and place to hustle up some business. My manager sprinted over to him and told him knock it off and that kind of thing wasn't allowed in here. So he sat down and resumed drinking. I had to reread this twice because I couldn't believe the guy didn't drop his pants. A married couple in their 50s arguing how they were going to explain the fact they couldn't pay the remainder of the €3 million bill for a Ferris wheel they'd ordered 18 months ago, already put $1 million deposit on, and whose collection was due at 8 AM the following morning. The people are here to repossess the Ferris wheel. Customer speaking to his friend, "Mate, I can't believe you couldn't get it up for her. I mean, I would have just fricked the bee soft and use a shoehorn or something." Me, "That'll be £9. Thumbing it in. I once had to ask a woman to remove her infant from the bar top. She put them on the floor. I really don't miss bartending. Someone was boasting about his very small penis. Very tiny, like micro. He proceeds to lower his pants and show it to his friend. Microflex. The first bar I ever worked in was across the road from a hospital. We frequently were visited by police looking for people who had escaped the mental ward, T2 unit, who I had served, none the wiser. More often than not, we would have people come in with empty coffee cups asking if we would put their loved one's favorite double shot or a half pint in the cup, as the person in hospital would more than likely die in the next day or two and wanted one last drink before they did. Also, one dude literally walked in with a drip still in his arm and pulling the metal thing that the bag goes on. Man and woman is sitting at the bar. She starts crying and says, "I just want us to have something special." The guy looked her dead in the eyes and said, "We do have something special. We have sex. We are both married." 10 minutes later they are making out and she's rubbing his dong over his pants. I love slow Wednesdays. One of the guys at the bar recognized me. Somehow. He said he knew my mother and dropped her name. Somehow. He apparently met her at a BDSM club. Somehow. Your mom. At her BDSM club. So anyway, here are some pictures of my kid. Jesty one. Look at the pictures. Slave. I knew a guy that was an amazing bartender. He'd get random BS drink names all the time and he'd make them perfectly. Can I get a sexy mosquito? Sure. What color? Pink. I can do pink. Combines random crap. Here you go. It's good, yeah, I know. Just like last time, it was always hilarious. Asking what color is a nice touch. Former bartender here. Best advice I ever received for crazy drink requests was make it strong. Make it red. Odds are they have no idea what the drink is either, and even if the color is completely wrong, few people are going to complain about a strong, tasty cocktail. Was tending bar at my local pub. Loads of old boys used to come in and get properly razzled. One day, I am polishing glasses and they'd been day drinking and it was around 7 PM. I hear this almighty crash and turn around. One of them has fallen off their bar stool. Total silence. Then one guy just loudly declares, "Didn't spill a drop." The whole pub erupts with laughter. Guy who fell off still stands up, tips his hat, and went home. An Iranian girl was on holiday with her brother and sister. The family came in for burgers. We're known for burgers and a good time. While waiting she got a little tipsy and the beer must have bloated her because while eating the burger she started dirty talking it. "I'm going to take you upstairs and show you a good time. Let's go to bed so I can finish you off. You're going to make me feel so good tonight." She was an absolute treat of person and one of my favorite customers. This was actually after I had clocked out and sat down at the other side of the bar for my shifty. An older couple I had served earlier had come back. Bar was right next to a theater, so we'd usually serve the same customers twice on show nights, and got dinner and were talking about what they'd ordered. She says she got the shrimp dish, and that apparently didn't sit well with her husband as he just started unloading on her in a way that had my co-worker and I just shocked. Ordering the Camarones El Diablo was apparently enough for him to start griping about taking care of their granddaughter because his wife's daughter was hooked on them and unable to do so herself. Long story short, she says, "You know what? Why don't you walk back to the Airbnb and I'm going to drive home." He left. She paid and told us this was their first night out in about a year and she had been thinking of divorcing him, and that conversation made her mind up. Watched a marriage dissolve over dinner pretty much. This will probably get lost and it's not something weird I heard, but definitely the most impactful. It was a bank holiday shift, but I think it was the Sunday. So everyone had partied themselves out over the weekend and the Sunday wasn't quiet, but it was quiet enough that you could have a customer on your station all night. This older guy comes in. As soon as he walks through the door he starts looking round the room, taking pictures and looking like he's being nosy. I think it's a bit odd, but I do work in a really cool bar so it's to be expected. He comes to my station and normal conversation starts. "How's your night? What have you been up to? Where are you from?" etc. We get on to the topic that he's a gambler and a bit of a con man. I'm super into it as I love things like that. Seems pretty legit. He's showing cars he's had. Starts having small fun bets with people around. Not for money but just for fun and laughs. We form a good rapport. I've made him a drink that he's never had called a Slagavelin. It's a French martini but replace the vodka with Lagavulin. Blasphemous but freaking great. After a while he starts talking in a regretful way. How he's screwed people over. He's wasted his life. Been a bit of a dong and a not nice character. I think he's cool, has interesting stories, made my night entertaining and has entertained others around him, so I'll let him know. I don't know about his past, but from what I've seen he's an interesting dude and is alright by me. I remembered him for a while as being one of my favorite and most interesting customers in the 6 years that I had been a bartender, and did think how he was getting on as he wasn't from round here. Fast forward about half a year, he comes in, so I greet him and he straight away asks for the drink I made him that night. Sure enough, I make it, serve it and shake his hand. He holds onto my hand with both of his and says, "I'm so glad you're in tonight. I was really hoping I'd see you." I thought he was just being nice until I realized he was starting to well up, which is when he said something along the lines of, "You saved my life. That night I came in I was going to end my life. I came in for one drink to work up the courage and you stopped me from doing that. You listened to me and enjoyed it and I'm so thankful. Thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. I really mean it. I do. And that's one of the most impactful moments I've ever had on my life." TLDR. Stopped someone from taking their own life without knowing, just by talking with them. If you haven't read Going Postal by Terry Pratchett, I'd highly recommend it. Was very close to a guy that conned a lot in college. I identify with this post. Lots of genitalia talk at the one bar I worked at that was more men networking doing business drinks. The weirdest was these two guys who sat at the bar instead of a table and tried to kick me out by asking if I can leave the bar area because they want to have a private conversation. How about no? I'm polishing glasses for the evening rush for a convention and I'm not standing in the middle of the fricking room. I said I'll go stand at the far end of my bar and polish there. Man 1. Her CCH has a rank smell. Tried all kinds of creams and stuff. She's going to the doctor. Man 2. That's fine. Reason not to eat it. Man 1. I still frick it. At least whatever yeast happening there makes it slippery. I just have to shower or smell like rotting fish. Man 2. That's fricking gross dude. Man 1. Frick you dude. I wonder what it is. I wanted to say it's probably trichomoniasis but also horrified that he was still having sex with her and probably contributing to making it even worse and causing some BV issues. That poor woman. That always bothered me on TV shows and movies. Whenever main characters want to have a conversation they ask other people to leave. Bartending on a slow night like 15 years ago. These two guys, one a regular, talking about the past and keeping their voices low. The regular says how he shot some guy on his street in like the 70s and just came back in the house and hid the gun in his recliner. Said when the cops were going door to door asking questions he just said he didn't know or hear anything. I was always hearing crazy crap cause I just kept to myself unless a customer was looking to talk. And like a previous bartender stated, we hear it all. Yes, we do know all about the drugs. I always wondered if that victim died in that incident, but just a few short years after I overheard that convo the regular died a painful death. Maybe deserved. You don't even have to hear about it to know about the drugs as a bartender. If you see a group of people walk into the tiny restroom together and then come out in a different mood, whether it be happier or kind of on edge or maybe they'll stop looking you in the eyes when ordering drinks, then you know they're on blow lol. Former bartender. There were quite a few regulars I was fond of but there was one in particular that I couldn't let my guard down around. He was off in some way and I immediately didn't trust him. Slightly older than middle age. He introduces himself and I get his drink, as you do, and after a bit he starts on about his life. Wife left him near a decade ago with 2 little ones to raise on his own. Must have been rough, I say. Yeah, but I've worked hard and done right by my kids. Well, cheers to that. Over time I hear him tell the same story the same way to several others, most who had heard it many times before. One evening he comes in later than usual. Hi, how are doing? I say, though I can tell he is in a foul mood. No harm. Happens to the best of us. He sits near enough to the well with another gent I didn't see in there much. Other gents seemed to be having lady troubles and shifty regular had all the wrong answers. In a hushed and angry tone he said he took care of his own problem 10 years ago and made sure no one would ever find the bee. Well, that escalated quickly. I witnessed a complete relationship between 2 women over the course of one night. They met early in the night. They were clearly into each other. Very flirty. They danced and drank the night way. They started making out and then disappeared for some time. Next time I saw them they were at each other's throats. No clue what happened but it ended with one saying I never want to see you again then stormed out of the bar. After that night I never saw either of them again. They just speedrun the entire relationship. I occasionally work as a casino bartender and we will sometimes host the Marine Corps ball. They get rowdy and have a good time, but it's at the very end that you start seeing grown men cry. They start talking about their experiences during service with each other. The worst stories I ever overheard were from vets who served during the Vietnam War. It must have been terrible. My father would not say a word about what happened in Vietnam except for one thing. He was carrying his wounded friend for miles to get him pulled out, except the friend died so he was carrying his dead body and didn't know it. When he got home he threw every single medal he got away in the trash, including his Purple Heart and Bronze Star and the others he got. Had a customer complain that we ruined their new $100 pair of pants by getting bleach on them. We do add bleach to our sanitizer since the beginning of the pandemic, but it's like a 1:1000 ratio. She continually called and emailed about how she already ordered a new pair and we will reimburse her. She showed up a couple days later with the pants that she hadn't even washed yet because she didn't want to make it worse. Our sweet as heck day bartender noticed it was not the usual color of bleached jeans, grabbed a pen, scraped at the spot, and whatever little bit of sauce she had dropped on the pants that day chipped away. She left with the pants and we haven't seen her since. Favorite outcome to a wild situation. First place. 2 girls were drunk as heck, dancing on a mahogany high table, really thick beamed and heavy. The table begins wobbling and one girl leaps off. Table topples over, but her friend has her hand clasped around the edge of the table to hold onto it. The table lands with its full weight, including her own weight, on top of her hand, clipping the first joints of her index and ring finger clean off. My colleague acts quickly and picks up the detached index and ring finger and throws them into our ice machine to preserve them until an ambulance arrives. Manager proceeds to scold colleague, cause she's now rendered us entirely unable to serve any more drinks for the night and the ice machine now has to be cleaned. Second place. We've had a long night, a shift from 6 PM to 7 AM. Everyone's completely trashed from all the work, music and follow-up cleaning. We wanna go home. Before we head out, we sit down for a beer and a rant about how miserable the previous night was. We finish our beer and we pull aside our drapes covering the front door window and what do we see? Some poor guy leaning against the window. He's got his shirt off and 2 or 3 gnarly puncture wounds on his upper body. Someone jabbed him with a broken bottle. Someone promptly exclaims ARH frick. We're gonna have to clean that up, aren't we? And we laugh it off. Seconds later the police fortunately rolls up to help the poor guy. They tap the bloodied window and they beckon us outside. They'll want us to testimony what we've seen and an audible sigh can be heard among all of the remaining bar staff. We're not going home yet. It wasn't until I got home, went to sleep and took shower that I realized just how much of a dong reaction we'd all had to a poor guy getting stabbed. Ex-bartender. But my first day on my first bartending gig I was making drinks for another customer and a gentleman I had recently served fell off his bar stool onto the ground. Just the loudest sound, the weight of a body falling on the ground. I swung around and it took me a sec to see the guy on the ground. This was a rather decent sized busy local pub and it was during dinner time so people just started freaking out. I ran around the bar to the man and I had my co-worker call 911 while I, for your information, fully trained in CPR read first aid for years, tried to see what I could do to help. It took moments to figure out he was having stroke symptoms and he basically died in my arms. It was absolutely awful way to start a lot of things. It was a shock even more due to how others reacted. No one helped, instead we had people dine and dash. People mad that the poor guy collapsed and ruined their dinner, as one couple yelled at me while I'm trying to help this poor guy. Just awful stuff. I found out later he was a regular. He literally had only recently come in for a nightcap from work, which he did frequently. Only had a couple sips of his gin and tonic. I'll never forget it. 2 minute account AMD. I've only been at it like 3.5 years. I've seen. We should see other people converse. Awkward Tinder meetups. Regulars who come in with a different girl every time. A regular whose wife I know come and W someone else. Another regular come in looking at her husband, who was with someone else earlier that day. I got a couple now that I adore, but she is always wearing a very fancy but obvious submissive collar. I lost count of how many men my dad's age and up will ask me for my number. My most awkward to this day though was a couple who literally followed me from one bar to the next when I changed jobs, and then asked me to watch their dog for a sec while they went outside. Turns out they were breaking up after 10 years together. I still saw them each after them but never on the same day, like they decided ahead of time who got me when. It was worse than when my parents were separated. LMAO. Imagine getting a second family by working. Lucky life to live. The craziest was when a man ordered a filet well done and refused to have it butterflied. That's like a 30-minute cook time. He ate it with ketchup. The second was 2 older guys celebrating one of them getting out of jail. Over the course of the night I learned that he was arrested for DUI when he was parked beside train tracks. The other guy asked what he did with the crack rocks that he shoved in his butt. Didn't get to hear the answer, and that he was lucky he hadn't been caught hauling the gas cans to his business partner's house. The first one is a war crime. The second one is D-list Breaking Bad. Don't know if this is common but was sitting at a bar with a band. It was noisy and crowded. Some girl comes up next to where I was sitting and tells the bartender, "Excuse me, but I just saw that guy, customer, right there put something in that girl's drink." I didn't see the guy she pointed to. Bartender turns around and said something. I suspect a code word to somebody, and bam, immediately all the lights go on. The manager steps on stage, stops the band, and makes the following announcement. "Attention, we have a report that someone in this room possibly drugged a young lady's drink. We request that all women here immediately put down your drink and don't take another sip. We will replace your drink for free. If you are that young lady, we will notify you when you come to the bar. If anyone is feeling sick or weak, please let us know." Whoa. Lights stayed on. Band remained off. For a long time, maybe an hour. Cheers from the crowd and nobody complained. Don't know what the guy did because I didn't know which guy it was. That place rocks. Man, if I heard a bar did that, that would be my go-to bar forever. Love it. I worked in an open kitchen. A friend came in with a new girl and sat right in front of the line. They are having such a nice time. So happy for them. About halfway through their second bottle of wine, his date's loose-fitting shoulder shruggy type shirt falls a little too down and her bare titty is fully out. He doesn't even notice, sitting close on the same side of the booth. It's hilarious but like, oh snap. I get the server to go talk to them and like let her know. Pretty awesome. Same server also saved a man's life after realizing he was choking to death. He left the restaurant cause he was embarrassed he was choking. She followed him and got him as he was collapsing outside. Lil 1-2 Heimlich and she popped it out. She is still my very good friend and a total freaking legend. He left the restaurant cause he was embarrassed he was choking. She followed him and got him as he was collapsing outside. Lil 1-2 Heimlich and she popped it out. LPT, if you're choking, don't worry about being embarrassed. That's awesome that the server noticed. So we used to have this regular that would come in with his wife every Tuesday, and he'd always tip decent. And then he'd come in with his younger hotter neighbor the next day and tip real well. We could always hear him saying crap like "I'll leave my wife for you," etc. She was a regular as well and constantly flirting with other guys, and she brought in her own men on occasion. I had a regular crap himself once. He was on a bunch of meds and came in to drink. His divorce finalized and he was a mess. He shat his pants, proceeded to pay up, left to change, came back, and wanted to drink again. We had a guy faint and fall off a high chair. He'd run a marathon and instead of water, he drank beer. Had to call 911 and all that stuff. He was okay. I've heard some crazy crap too, but it's hard to remember it all. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.